Okay, welcome back, everybody. Now, what I want to do is introduce you to the Intuit ProConnect software, and we are going to prepare a tax return together. As you saw in the syllabus, there's 4 tax returns that you're going to prepare throughout the semester. I think it's 4. It's 4 or it's 5. I don't remember. So to see what tax return you're going to be completing when they are assigned, you're going to find that in one of 2 places. Since you're doing all of your work on Cengage, when you're on Cengage, you're going to see a little reminder that gives you a due date reminding you that you need to complete a tax return, and it'll tell you which one it is, and all that good stuff. The instructions for the tax returns, which are going to be so useful because this software can seem a little bit tricky without it. When you go to the tax return instructions section here on D2L, here are the instructions for the Chapter 1 tax return you're going to complete for Patty Banyan. That's not the one we're going to do together. We're going to do the Lazo tax return. So the one I'm going to complete is tax return 2A, and I'm on page 1-40 of the textbook. So to follow along with this, go to page 1-40 of your textbook, and you can see 2A. There's information for Leslie and Leon Lazo, a W-2, and then some additional information. So hopefully by now you've already completed your Chapter 1 problems and you've already gone to the ProConnect tax site. If you haven't, for some reason, when you go into these instructions here, here's a link for ProConnect. The first time you go to this site, it's going to ask you to either use an Intuit login that you already have. You might already have one if you've used QuickBooks, or you've used maybe TurboTax or something. You can always create a brand new login. You don't have to use one of the other ones if maybe your login is for work or something. This is all free. So let's prepare a tax return. Buckle up, everybody. This is going to be exciting. Okay, so create tax return is where we're always going to start. And we are going to only be completing individual tax returns in this class. We're not doing any business tax returns. This select an existing client thing, you don't want to use that. What that's for is if you have a business of your own and you have some QuickBooks clients, and then you can upload their information into this ProConnect tax software. But definitely not a topic for this class. Okay, so we are working with Leon. So we're going to enter in his name, Leon Lazo. You'll notice that the problem doesn't give us a date of birth, but in the instructions for this Lazo problem, it just tells us to, and you don't have these instructions in front of you, you're just going to follow along. The tax returns that you're going to complete, you're always going to have instructions in front of you. I'm just going to enter a date of birth so that Leon is a young adult. So we're just going to say his birthday is August 1st to 1998. And we have a tax ID number for Leon. If you look at his W-2, it is on there. It's 467744451. And we have Leon's address. (143) Snapdragon Drive, Reno. Nevada 82102. Okay, and we don't have a phone number for him or an email address. Don't worry about that stuff. If it doesn't give it to you, just don't worry about it. Okay, so here's going to be his name. This is an individual tax return. All the returns we're going to generate are for 2018, so you're never going to need to do anything there. Okay, so now we're going to want to go to the input return screen. And the problem didn't give us any information on Leon being a resident of more than one state. That would be way too complex for something right now. It's really important in every problem. And again, every problem is going to give you instructions, so you're really not going to miss anything. In the problem, you can see that Leslie and Leon are married. So we are going to be married filing jointly. And under taxpayer information, we are going to enter Leon's occupation. And what does he do? He works at his butcher job, so we're going to call him a butcher. And you don't need to fill out every single thing that you find on this program. Only fill out what the instructions tell you to fill out. Everything else is unnecessary. So you'll always have like a 1-page, 1.5-page list of instructions. We also want to enter in the spouse information since Leon has a spouse, Leslie. They give us Leslie's social security number, 466473311. We're going to give her a date of birth, so she's another young adult. Okay, so next here we're going to miscellaneous information. This is going to be a self-prepared tax return. And I'm going to post the instructions for this tax return for you guys on D2L so that you can be able to look at it while you're watching this video with me. But you do not need to prepare this tax return and turn it in. But you can certainly prepare it and do it for practice before you do the real one that you're going to turn in. Okay, and then the next step on the instructions tell us to go to the designee IRS discussion. We just want to leave that blank, so we're not designating anyone to be able to talk about the tax return for us. We're just leaving that blank. The reason why someone might put something in this field is because maybe they want their CPA to be able to talk to the IRS about their tax return. But I think every tax return that we do is just going to have us leaving that blank. Okay, the next place we need to go to is the health coverage. Credits. Health coverage, exemptions, and miscellaneous. And we're going to say that the entire household was covered for all months. This is just because in 2018, the Affordable Care Act was still not yet repealed, and people had to state on their tax return whether or not they had health insurance coverage for the entire year. So this family did have health insurance coverage. If they didn't, then they could possibly be subject to some sort of a penalty, but we're not covering that yet, so we don't have to worry about it. We just are entering that in. Next, we're going to go down to income, because we're going to enter our wages and salaries because Leon had wages. Oops. Now we're going to look at the information from Leon's W-2. So there's an employer identification number that's on there, 3307123455. And then it's going to open up this little window to prompt you to try to get the W tax information. You're never going to want to do that since this is all pretend. But what this is doing is a lot of large employers or people that are using QuickBooks and a bunch of other payroll providers will have all the information available to be downloaded. And then it would just connect to a site and then download the W-2 information. But we're not doing that in this class. So we're going to enter in the name of the employer, Super Deal Grocery, 2200 Mesa Boulevard, Reno, Nevada. Oops. 82102. We're going to enter in Leon's wages. They were $50,675.17. We're going to enter in his federal income tax, 3102.32. You can see that the Social Security wages and the Medicare wages automatically populated. That's because they're pretty much always going to be the same. You can see that it also auto-calculated the Social Security tax that was withheld and the Medicare tax withheld. That's because those are flat rates, and Intuit knows what those rates are, so it can calculate the amounts. If someone's W-2 had different amounts, there's probably going to be a problem. But we're not going to encounter that. And you can also see that there's some rounding going on too. So whenever you're entering things into tax forms, they don't worry about cents. They just round. So keep that in mind too. That's completely fine. Okay, so let's look at the rest of the information in the return. So Leon and Leslie are married, but you can see that Leslie didn't work. So we don't need to enter any sort of W-2 or any information from her. We have Leon's income in there. We also see that Leslie and Leon have a 20-year-old son named Lyle. Here's his Social Security number. The reason why, as we are filing this return, you don't see anything under the instructions for entering that information in is because, first of all, we're only in Chapter 1. We're not dealing with any tax credits, dependent tax credits yet. That doesn't come until Chapter 7. Before the new Trump tax law took effect, it used to be that people got personal exemptions for themselves and also any of their dependents. Well, that was one of the things that went away that you read about in Chapter 1. The standard deductions were raised, personal exemptions were taken away, a lot of things were changed. So it's not going to change the tax return for Leon and Leslie for us to enter any information about his son because we're not dealing with tax credits yet. So we're not going to do anything with that information. You can see he's not a full-time student. They tell us the amount of gross income that he has. So that's telling us that he is going to end up being a dependent, but it's not applicable for this kind of entry-level tax return that we're doing. So basically, when you're completing these tax returns, you don't need to worry about anything other than do everything the instructions tell you to do. I do not expect you to be professionals using this program. I just want you to use it a couple times so that you can be able to have used a tax preparation software before. There's many of them out there. I happen to use TurboTax for my own tax preparation. I really like it because I've been using it for years. I really understand it and I know my way around it well. So that's what I do. These softwares here are a lot more complex, and they're built for people that are actually preparing tax returns as their professions. So don't feel like stressed out or anything that you don't know this program by the time you're done with this class, because you're definitely not supposed to. There's so much stuff in here that you just don't need to know how to use, and you're never going to use. If you go on in your professional life and you actually become a tax preparer, it will help you to have used this program, but you're going to have to learn whatever program it is that you're going to use for your job. So this is just for you to get the experience kind of playing around with one of these programs and then see, based on what you're entering in and the information that's given in the problems, what the tax returns actually look like when they're finished. So that's all this is. Everybody should get full credit on the tax returns. If you do them and you do them on time and you follow the instructions and then you check your work, this should all be very easy A assignment stuff. Okay, so now I'm at the bottom. We're ready to file our return. There's nothing else for us to do here. Okay, so now we're going to file our return. So we're still just following the instructions. We're going to go to file return. And then here you're going to generate a tax return that you're going to end up turning in to me on D2L. If you happen to do this one with me, this is not the one you're going to turn in. You're going to turn in Patty Banyan, which was number 1 in your book on page 1-39, but you're still going to go through these instructions. So you're going to view the return. And you can see it comes up with this really professional looking set of documents with their name, a letter to them, some information on their tax return that you can look through, their actual tax return, so this is the document that I want you to turn into me. So take a look at it. You'll kind of get used to how some of the forms look. Every time you guys have a tax return that you're completing for credit, there's also going to be a file that I talked about in my other video where you can check your work. Use that to check your work, just to make sure all the numbers match. If you happen to miss something and you need to go in and fix it, go in and fix it, start over, do whatever you want. Okay, so since I'm going to turn this one in, you guys aren't turning this one in, but we're going to pretend like I'm turning it in. I'm going to download it. And I'm going to stick it in some folder on my computer where I know where to find it. And I want you to name it with, put your name on it. Or actually, no, I don't. I want you to first put the taxpayer's name on it. Lazo, Chapter 1. And yours is going to be Banyan, right? Because you're doing Patty Banyan. Lazo, Chapter 1. And that's actually fine because you're going to put it in a assignment submission folder on D2L, and I'm going to know who you are. So you don't need to put your name on this one. Okay, so now where to turn it in. When you go on to D2L, go to Assessments, Assignments, and then you're going to see a folder where you can attach the tax return. So go in there, attach the file, turn it in. You're all done and good to go.